A double-barreled detective story by Mark Twain. Part 1, Chapter 4. No real gentleman will tell the naked truth in the presence of ladies. It was a crisp and spicy morning in early October. The lilacs and laburnums, lit with the glory fires of autumn, hung burning and flashing in the upper air. A fairy bridge provided by kind nature for the wingless wild things that have their homes in the tree-tops and would visit together. The larch and the pomegranate flung their purple and yellow flames in brilliant, broad splashes along the slanting sweep of the woodland. The sensuous fragrance of innumerable deciduous flowers rose upon the swooning atmosphere. Everywhere brooded stillness, serenity, and the peace of God. October is the time. 1900. Hope Canyon is the place, a silver mining camp away down in the Esmeralda region. It is a secluded spot, high and remote, recent as to discovery, thought by its occupants to be rich in metal. A year or two's prospecting will decide that matter one way or the other. For inhabitants, the camp has about 200 miners, one white woman and child, several Chinese washermen, 5 squaws, and a dozen vagrant buck Indians in rabbit-skin robes, battered plug heads, and tin can necklaces. There are no mills yet. There is no church, no newspaper. The camp has existed but 2 years. It has made no big strike. The world is ignorant of its name and place. On both sides of the canyon the mountains rise wall-like, 3,000 feet, and the long spiral of straggling huts down in its narrow bottom gets a kiss from the sun only once a day, when she sails over at noon. The village is a couple of miles long. The cabins stand well apart from each other. The tavern is the only frame house, the only house, one might say. It occupies a central position and is the evening resort for the population. They drink there and play 7-ups and dominoes, also billiards, for there is a table, crossed all over with torn places, repaired with court plaster. There are some cues, but no leathers, some chipped balls which clatter when they run and do not slow up gradually, but stop suddenly and sit down. There is part of a cube of chalk with a projecting jag of flint in it, and the man who can score 6 on a single break can set up the drinks at the bar's expense. Flint Buckner's cabin was the last one of the village, going south. His silver claim was at the other end of the village, northward, and a little beyond the last hut in that direction. He was a sour creature, unsociable, and had no companionships. People who had tried to get acquainted with him had regretted it and dropped him. His history was not known. Some believed that Sammy Hillier knew it. Others said no. If asked, Hillier said no, he was not acquainted with it. Flint had a meek English youth of 16 or 17 with him, whom he treated roughly both in public and in private, and of course this lad was applied to for information, but with no success. Fatlock Jones, the name of the youth, said that Flint picked him up on a prospecting tramp, and as he had neither home nor friends in America, he had found it wise to stay and take Buckner's hard usage for the sake of the salary, which was bacon and beans. Further than this he could offer no testimony. Fatlock had been in this slavery for a month now, and under his meek exterior he was slowly consuming to a cinder with the insults and humiliations which his master had put upon him. For the meek suffer bitterly from these hurts, more bitterly perhaps than do the manlier sort who can burst out and get relief with words or blows when the limit of endurance has been reached. Good-hearted people wanted to help Fetlock out of his trouble and tried to get him to leave Buckner, but the boy showed fright at the thought and said he doesn't. Pat Riley urged him and said, "You'll leave the damned hunks and come with me. Don't you be afraid. I'll take care of him." The boy thanked him with tears in his eyes, but shuddered and said he doesn't risk it. He said Flint would catch him alone sometime in the night, and then, "Oh, it makes me sick, Mr. Riley, to think of it." Others said, "Run away from him. We'll stake you. Skip out for the coast some night." But all these suggestions failed. He said Flint would hunt him down and fetch him back, just for meanness. The people could not understand this. The boy's miseries went steadily on week after week. It is quite likely that the people would have understood if they had known how he was employing his spare time. He slept in an out cabin near Flint's, and there, nights, he nursed his bruises and his humiliations and studied over a single problem: how he could murder Flint Buckner and not be found out. It was the only joy he had in life. These hours were the only ones in the 24 which he looked forward to with eagerness and spent in happiness. He thought of poison. No, that would not serve. The inquest would reveal where it was procured and who had procured it. He thought of a shot in the back in a lonely place when Flint would be homeward bound at midnight, his unvarying hour for the trip. No, somebody might be near and catch him. He thought of stabbing him in his sleep. No, he might strike an inefficient blow and Flint would seize him. He examined 100 different ways. None of them would answer, for in even the very obscurest and secretest of them there was always the fatal defect of a risk, a chance, a possibility that he might be found out. He would have none of that. But he was patient, endlessly patient. There was no hurry, he said to himself. He would never leave Flint till he left him a corpse. There was no hurry. He would find the way. It was somewhere, and he would endure shame and pain and misery until he found it. Yes, somewhere there was a way which would leave not a trace, not even the faintest clue to the murderer. There was no hurry. He would find that way, and then it would just be good to be alive. Meantime, he would diligently keep up his reputation for meekness, and also, as always, theretofore, he would allow no one to hear him say a resentful or offensive thing about his oppressor. And I have to stop now for today. Bye-bye. Till next time.